Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. A little delay. I'm here with Dion. Oh, and the owl showed up. We were waiting for you. Sorry to be late because we clearly blame it on Chris Kanaracus being 5 minutes late. We're not easy fellas here. So thank you for being last. Introduce yourself first by the virtue of the alphabet, Chris.
By the letter of the alphabet?
Yeah, that's how it is important for me. Google Hangouts sorts these things alphabetically. You just came in late and swoop here in front of Diane.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm Chris Kanaracus, managing editor of Constellation Insights, and
then we have Diane.
Write stuff every day about the enterprise space.
Diane, say a word.
This is Dion Hinchcliffe with Constellation. I haven't seen Doug and Holger in hours, but looking forward to the conversation.
Yeah, we all look different then, huh? And Doug?
Yeah, this is Doug Henschen, and going alphabetically, I should be right after Dion, but here I am. In my view, I'm after you, Holger.
Interesting how it keeps changing. I think the U is always on the right. The left to me is alphabetical. So, gentlemen, we've been busy in the Florida swamps this week, right? And I'm trying to make a statement here, being in windowless rooms for the whole week. I need to catch up on my suntan, right? This doesn't happen by itself. So, enjoying the outdoors in San Diego. Chris, you're opposite in the country of me, right?
Yes, I'm in my private nerve center here in Greater Boston, undisclosed location.
And Doug is only 10 hours drive south or 8 hours drive south from you in the Garden State?
Yeah, home office in New Jersey.
Yeah, and then how long does it take to DC from there, Diane?
Not too long. You can train it or plane it. It doesn't take very long.
Excellent. All right. But we're not going to talk about locations and the weather. We want to talk about Sapphire, right? What happened there? Who wants to kick it off? I mean, Chris, you had the easiest thing. You didn't have to make it down to Orlando, right? You didn't have to battle the humidity, the crowds, the endless food, the SAP people scheduling. I think I had 32 meetings scheduled by SAP in 3 days. So,
did you take all 32?
Your distance as Diane, Doug, and me are kind of decompressing here.
Well, I watched a couple of the keynotes. I kind of had Hassel on in the background, I must admit, for his, but paid close attention to Bill McDermott on day one and Bernd Lukert on day one. I'm going to be honest.
First time McDermott announced a major SAP product. I mean, he's there since, I guess, soon it's going to be 10 plus years. He's always opening the first day. The keynote format was changed, right? It's always been like business general things. Usually McDermott and Henschen on the first day, and then the product keynote on the second day, and Hasso-Plattner on the third day. And they changed that format. I think the format was interesting. What do you guys think, Doug and Diane?
Yeah, no, I thought it was very engaging, and I think they were being smart. They were bringing up a lot of other voices for the company. It was great to see Michael Dell there too. Although I think Holger, I saw on Twitter, you thought some of the guests kind of made it feel like 1990s all over again.
Exactly.
But I thought that was good history. Anyway, so I thought it was well orchestrated the first day keynote, especially. I think the announcement went over people's heads. It was a little bit too much to absorb. I don't think they explained it as well and as cleanly as they could and should have. But they certainly got their message out that something big was there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
made
I think
clear that Leonardo was big. Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it's telling that we were all sitting down in some one-on-one time with executives, and they were asking us what our impression of was what it was. What was it announced? The next day, Hasso talked about Leonardo being a set of tools. And I don't think that quite captured it either. We had a nice discussion with that executive about, is it a framework? And I think that's, where we came down, Leonardo being, a framework for innovative apps. And, the naming is a little unfortunate, right? But yeah.
Yeah, so quickly for who's missed it, right? What is Leonardo? Leonardo is every product SAP has done since S4HANA, since spring of 2015, basically, running on the SAP cloud form. And it is the old or existing analytics products. It is the digital boardroom. It is the big data capabilities, which I'm pretty skeptical personally about. It is a new blockchain offering. It is machine learning. What did I forget, gentlemen? It's 6 or 7 components.
We got data
IoT, which is the original.
And IoT, yep, exactly.
The original Leonardo, my bad. I mean, I'm Sapphire here.
Yeah, so IoT, you know, a lot of people
Exactly.
criticize him for starting it with Leonardo as IoT, but I think that's sort of inside the industry. I think, you know, the SAP customer base, Leonardo hadn't even begun to sink in. So I don't know if it's really a problem taking the name broader to be much more than just IoT.
I think as a name, it's pretty decent for what they want to do revenue-wise. It's obvious that this is going to be the way they pitch big digital transformation projects with SAP as the leader on the job.
Yeah. It's all about
nice brand name. I mean, you know, and of course, it harks back to Leonardo da Vinci is the intent there. I worry that without it being self-explanatory, you know, like calling it the digital business cloud.
They could have spent a minute about Leonardo da Vinci being this generalist person, right? Painting the Mona Lisa, great sculptures, designing a bridge to go over the Bosporus, right? Inventing the tank. I think he invented the plane and paper too or something like this, right? This generalist, which is exactly what business needs at the moment because they don't know where the journey is going with digital transformation, right? They might become sculptors, they might become painters. Right?
Exactly. Organizations have to go through a digital renaissance. They have to be reborn to the digital age, right? And Leonardo da Vinci was, hearkened that rebirth. So but all of that was missed in the keynote, right? So I think some of the branding and messaging opportunities might have been lost there.
Right. So that's the main take. And I get that wrong, but what I liked about the IoT approach, which is then called Leonardo, is that we don't know how IoT is really going to be run, right? We can't tell that. It's too early for that. So what we give you as a platform, we give you technology and some bundles which you can use as jump starts to configure and run it. And for me, correct me if I'm wrong, the same value proposition has been carried over for the general digital transformation in Leonardo yet, where it means that it's this framework, like we said, but it's also an implementation approach where SAP in Q3 wants to start design thinking workshops together with customers. In rapid prototyping, 5-6 weeks comes something up. It's a new sales approach because not sales guys showing a software piece, an RFP, and a pricing approach because interesting enough, SAP will not say, first of all, you want to license, it's going to cost you that much, but do the design thinking and then we'll tell you what you need and what's going to cost. How would you feel about that as CIO, Diane?
Yeah, I thought that was very well described. Yeah, I think they have a good umbrella that says all the new things that are happening in the industry. We have this. We've kind of had these higher order functions that after you've done your basic cloud adoption and you've moved ERP to the cloud, now you really have to digitally transform. And I like the design thinking pieces, although it didn't fit in with a lot of the technologies. They kind of placed everything at the same level as the technologies, which I thought was a little confusing to some people. Yeah. But from the standpoint that they're gonna provide better designed and better situated implementations, I thought that was really smart to say if you believe in the design thinking approach. Right. And then there was the data intelligence, which I don't think a lot of people understood. That's not just technology. It's about anonymized data, about SAP bringing strategic data sets to Leonardo users that are highly differentiated. And data is the differentiator. Technology is not much of a differentiator anymore, right? It always becomes commoditized. Data is a differentiator. So I thought that was smart. But again, we didn't hear a lot about that. I thought that the messaging was very, very good. It was a lot of fun, and it was well. But I think they missed some strategic opportunities for the C-set.
Yeah, I spent some time with Marcus Noga, the VP of Machine Learning, and he went on about first he told us that they're going to be using TensorFlow, that they've been working with it for at least 12 months, long before the announcement with Google. But he made the point that anybody can use TensorFlow. It's open source. They're talking about bringing GPUs into their data centers. Anybody can work with GPUs. Anybody can go to OpenAI and download research and apply it to their business. But not everybody has an Ariba or a Concur or SuccessFactors and Fieldglass or S4HANA, where you have this huge amount of data that you can apply. And I think so there's some smart thinking around that, and they're already coming out with machine learning based optimizations that they're planning, not just things that in the way of machine learning APIs, but they're planning to do this within S4HANA, and they've introduced a wave of machine learning optimized applications in finance with receivables and payables, in marketing with brand impact analysis, sales, customer retention, HR, resume matching, all sorts of things that they're already They have a first wave available, and they're planning second and third waves of these capabilities within within ERP to be optimized.
But when you touch on a good point, I think customers need to realize that the different squares, as Hasso Plattner called in his Q&A, where we made a square and put other squares into it. So he said, don't hang yourself up too much on what's in there right now. This may change, more things might come in. But it's important to realize that these squares have different levels of maturity. Right? If you think about the old business objects products, they're probably the most mature there. I'm not yet sure 100% what data intelligence is going to be. IoT has been around since a little than a year. The blockchain pieces are brand new from at least what I can tell. At TechEd in Barcelona in November, there was no talking about TensorFlow, I can tell you that. So whatever they might have been doing since a year, so I see that as a relatively new tool. So keep in mind as a customer that everything of that has a certain date behind that, right? So Chris, what was your take on the Leonardo piece?
What you just said, Holger, how much of this stuff is real right now and how much of it yet to come? I thought the blockchain in particular kind of came out of nowhere. I'm wondering,
what?
Are they partnering for that? That wasn't clear. I'm wondering how many, because how can SAP be, a true expert in every one of these areas? How many, and which ones are they going to have to partner and with people who are way ahead of them, such as with blockchain, say IBM instead of them? Why not just do that? I don't know. They of course will never say that during a keynote, what they don't have or what they're not doing themselves. They'll present it as a unified front. But that was the question I had after soaking everything in, When's it all going to be real? How much of this is pre-announced and so forth?
Right. And I was trying to hint to you, asking you, Diane, because you deal a lot with CIOs, right? If I do this design thinking, it doesn't cost me nothing, but at the end of the day, I get the price tag, I still would be very nervous and would like to get some updates because I get the benefit of it. If I don't get the price tag of it, it's going to be interesting how these first design workshops will take out. But the whole thing was, I think, to a certain point also distracting from what could have been the other big news, Chris, right? I mean, you know what I'm pointing to?
Oh, I was just going to say there's a mention on Twitter that the attempt to talk about, if the tweeter was a cynic, this attempt to talk about Leonardo is to do anything but to talk about indirect access.
Yeah, but there we have kudos to McDermott, right? I mean, there's the indirect. In my view, we have to get kudos to McDermott because he addressed it right away, and the audience couldn't even. I think it was even too fast for them to realize.
Right in the morning of day one, right?
Yeah.
Right. He right to the elephant in the room. So I think kudos for that perspective. It's a highly difficult topic, right? Lawsuits are running and ongoing, and I mean the leitmotif of the McDermott saying you own your data and you have free static access. Nobody knows what static access means. I think that's a good proposition for customers. And then going to traditional SAP engine pricing, everybody remembers that from the 90s and early 2000s, right? Where you pay per order and get something in, but there's value associated to it. So I think it's good for them to address it. The cow is not from the eyes, as you say in German. Tell me what the English saying for that is, but it's at least a start on that, right? But the real,
I think we're waiting for the full reception, but the main German SAP users group came back with one word: insufficient. It's going to continue to go on.
What? Do I translate? What was the word? Yeah, they're not happy, right? But the user group has to push and has to represent the users. So I think it's going to be a dialogue, and we find out what happens. But what should have been the big news, Chris? What have been asking all the Sapphires before?
What should have been the big news? I don't know.
Well, everybody, we talked only about this last Sapphire, and to give kudos to our financial analyst colleagues. I was at the financial FAQ, and they didn't let go. They only grilled the board, nothing on Leonardo. They only said, where's S4HANA? Right? It was interesting to see comparison. The industry analysts, Leonardo here, Leonardo there. No question S4HANA, right? Last year was all about S4HANA adoption numbers, and maybe SAP planted a squirrel for all of industry analysts of Leonardo not to talk about S4HANA.
Yeah, I had a conversation with a systems integrator that was very much interested in that, was very disappointed that they didn't really kind of follow on the stories from 2016 with what they're doing with S4HANA, and lamenting that there's some white space and gaps to fill there.
Well, that's the interesting thing, right? Because SAP is pushing their customers, is pushing the partner system to upgrade and move to S4HANA, and now you have the Premier User Conference, and I think there was no mention in the keynote, S4HANA, the dual core, right? But in terms of capabilities, where it stands, where it's an adoption, even not where they have a number of customers on the on-premises side, there was no number on adoption, right? and that the cloud story isn't great. We know this at SAP Capital Markets Day, where the number is double-digit. And then it's so funny to see Hasselplatten on the second day saying, I'm only going to talk about cloud, but customers are not consuming or moving to the digital core, aka S4HANA in the cloud. Yeah, so that was interesting to me, that we learned a little about it. And on the flip side, many customers are still on ECC, on Suite on HANA, and so on, and there was nothing for them in the keynote.
Well, don't forget the sessions. I think to be fair to SAP, we'd have to go look and see what percentage of sessions in both the SUG side of the show and SAP side were S4HANA sessions, were roadmaps, or customer panels, things we don't know that.
Very good point, right? And what SAP had as the main result is the whole empathy trip, right? McDermott's keynote last year was about empathy with the customers, and they heard from the customers they don't know where it's going, what's happening. So SAP released the Transformation Navigator, right, which we looked at. I don't know if you had demos. I had a detailed demo of it. First of all, it's funny, right? When software companies have a problem, what's the answer? More software, right?
Yeah,
so
it almost looked like a software updater tool. It didn't, the Transformation Navigator looked like my Microsoft Update utility. So,
that's what they want you to do, right? It has to be now. But I think it did a good job of saying where you are and what benefits you can have. So it's a mixture of solution maps, solution manager, which it works on. We did some hard questions, what solution manager version you have to be, because there's also issues in the ecosystem around that. I think it's a good step for customers to see what's happening. It's also transforming, right? Digital transformation doesn't stop, or it doesn't only happen to customers. And for software, it doesn't stop.
And with the
sales process. Yeah, go ahead, Dion.
So I just want to jump in. You were talking about the Navigator, and in the keynote, it talked about the CIO can do a business case now with benchmark data. Were you able to see that in your demos?
Yeah, so the value engineering efforts, which SAP has always, all ERP vendors do this, right, has always done a good job to create the business case. Some of that content is in the Transformation Navigator. So smart move, important move, right?
Very good. Yeah. So another thing that I saw at the, you guys may not have gone to, there was another event as part of Sapphire right before called a Call to Lead. So that was another story. You guys might not have seen that. I can cover that briefly. But basically, they've had a leadership summit at Sapphire every year for like the last 4 years. I think the first year they had 60 people. This year, there must have been a couple of thousand people. And the speakers were all-star cast, including Michelle Obama. Opened up the session. She was fantastic. Bush closed it up. And he was also surprisingly good. And then they had a lot of people from PwC, Deloitte, and others talking about digital leadership and how we in order for all of this, to take Leonardo and really remake your business and create whole new digital businesses, we need better digital leadership. We need the right skills, and we have to build global organizations that have the right the right diversity to make that happen. So that was another thing that took place. And Bill McDermott did the interview with Michelle Obama. And it was it was very well produced.
I think we go to so many events, there's almost no event where there's not a woman event, woman lounge, woman sidetrack, right? And I'm going to be politically incorrect and say, I'm going to wait for, it's male-dominated events in the industry. I'm happy for any woman to be there, father of 4 girls, right? I'm all pulling for them. But I would like to have a male event.
It's called.
I spent time
when I got
at the Data Decisions
males are in the minority, right? So go ahead, Doug.
I spent time at the data decisions oriented events because that's my area, and you're right. There's kind of what you hear in the keynotes, and there's what you hear in the smaller sessions. Mike Flanagan, the senior VP of analytics, gave some pretty good stuff for the analytics type customers. Talked about getting to a clearer roadmap, consolidating their mobile experiences, and most particularly getting to clearer and more consistent contracting, licensing, and pricing across the business objects and analytics products. He kind of lamented that it probably won't happen until 2018, but that's all very important stuff. And he was very much talking about sort of consistent pricing and flexibility to move between on-prem and cloud. So kind of disappointing to not have more detail at this point, and to hear that it might not be until 2018, because that's a theme we're seeing at a lot of vendors coming up with clearer and more consistent pricing across on-prem and cloud, a lot of subscription-based pricing models. And the other thing Mike Flanagan addressed was these, extensive name changes again in the analytics and BI portfolio. Last year, after renaming everything to have business objects, now they're removing that. 10 out of 15 products, renamed. And the most crucial one being Business Objects Cloud becoming SAP Analytics Cloud. Enough with the SAP clearly has problems with naming. I think customers just kind of roll with the punches and like, okay, this is the new name. All right, let's go forward. More important is that contracting, licensing, and pricing issue. That's what they need to resolve first. I think customers will forgive all the naming if they get that stuff right.
Exactly. The interesting thing is, so like the analytics, business objects things are the most mature part of Leonardo, and they still take time to sort out the branding, but basic blocking, tackling of moving to the cloud and the pricing. So that's where the alarm bells for me are a little ring in the back. I can't help it. Okay, we're coming up on time. So for our customers that we serve, the CXOs, what would be your 1 or 2 takeaways, things to pay attention for, Chris? What would you say?
From Sapphire, I would pay attention to Leonardo. I wouldn't necessarily devote next year's entire budget to it if you're a big SAP shop. I would at least engage with them on maybe a non-contractually binding design thinking session if it doesn't cost that much, and see if there's any fire behind the smoke, and see for yourself. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Diane, what would you say? What's the advice to CIOs, CTOs out there?
So CIOs, CDOs, CTOs. So Leonardo I think should be on your short list of systems or platforms, and we don't have a name for it, what it is, right? To consider for digital transformation efforts going forward. We're seeing CIOs under sharp pressure to move faster, and the industry accelerators in particular inside Leonardo, they're saying that it's up to 50% faster to get things to market. If it comes anywhere close to that, that's good. Right now, they're only supporting 4 industries. So I think you should experiment with Leonardo, but not what it can do, not prematurely overcommit to it. But if you're an SAP customer, it makes total sense to look at. With indirect pricing, that has major implications for digital businesses, for how much it costs just to do marketing, just to do a lot of read-only kinds of activities. As people build more apps around everything, that's going to become a major issue. I think that was significant. And it was good to see. I think that I saw more consistency in messaging, kind of the whole, the executive team working together very well with the rest of the product groups. Pretty consistent, even though I think there was still a lot of confusion about what all this stuff actually is. Surprisingly well, so I was glad to see that.
Doug, your recommendations?
Yeah, well, I'd say I'm going to be blogging about and analyzing a bit more about their machine learning. I was at once impressed with, how far along they are with TensorFlow and their plans there, to see if those products that they talked about as being available. Anxious to see customers really working with them. But I think they've got a 2-headed machine learning strategy here. The old stuff, as you say, the stuff from HANA and SAP Predictive Analytics, and then things in the Google TensorFlow frame that are being applied in the Leonardo, mode. So I think customers are going to have to sort of wait and see if they get a consistent way of dealing with machine learning and consuming machine learning-based insights and optimizations. And then, I'm pleased to hear the plans about streamlined pricing and licensing and all of that. I'm a little disappointed that we probably won't hear about it until 2018.
Yep. Well, my takeaways are, first of all, you realize that SAP is no longer pushing its own cloud. They have not officially said that. They have customers on that, but Diane Green was on stage. It's the 3rd cloud showing up. Last year it was Satya Nadella from Microsoft with Azure. Then there were many events with AWS. AWS pushing that. AWS is having a migration offering like all the other guys probably too. So realize if you're not on one of the 3 leading clouds, AWS, Google, and Azure, but on SAP cloud potentially, that you have the right conditions and the right setup for that, you might want to stay there. So that's for the currently direct realization from that. The next one is that with Leonardo, SAP has admitted it doesn't know the future of business best practices for the 21st century. You as a CIO, CTO have to say, these are the areas where, if I'm an SAP customer, where I'm going to be strategic, this is where I'm going to do digital transformation. There you have to ask yourself, do you want to do this in bed with SAP? If you're in bed with SAP and happy, by all means. If not, there's all the system integrators who can do this across all the different technology stacks. And where you're not going to be strategic, it's really time to look at the transformation navigator and see what value can SAP do for you, moving you to the 20th century best practice with simplification, with polishing, which basically is S4HANA, because remember, SAP copied the code of R3, of the business suite into S4HANA, then simplified, polished it, made it better, new UI and so on. But that's basically not what the 21st century will need in best practices. You don't need them everywhere, so make your choice, revisit that regularly, and take your bets. All right, where are you going to be next week, gentlemen? It's conference season.
Yeah.
Chris, you going to duke it out in the heat wave in Maine again? I saw 90-degree pictures, people at the beach. What's going on?
Infosys Confluence in San Francisco.
Are we all confluing in San Francisco, Chris? Doug?
No, I think I'm going to be at Salesforce World Tour in Boston, though. But it's going to be a weekend next weekend, so.
Little trips off. And Diane, where are you going to be seen next week?
I'm going to be seen online because I'll be home trying to get some work done. So I'll be writing and tweeting, and you guys will see all that.
This week, Chris had the jackpot staying home. Next week, you have the jackpot, right? For me, it's going to Confluence, and then, of course, bi-coastal events going back to New York for Ceridian's Analyst Summit on Thursday. So catch us out on Twitter. We tweet a lot, but you learn a lot. So appreciate any last words, famous last word you want to add on Sapphire or the week or the weather? The basketball playoffs? Let's talk about some real stuff. Come on, let's do some interesting. Who's going to win, the Warriors or the Warriors or the Cavaliers in the finals? Okay, Chris.
Hey, the series is not over yet. You know, we're
hoping for Boston. Come on. Okay, assuming that the Celtics don't make it. Oh, fine, put the Celtics in the final. Celtics against Warriors. Who's going to win?
Celtics, baby. Come on.
Okay, Diane, what's your? You're just mourning about the Wizards skiing out. So.
No, I'm sports agnostic myself, so I don't have a pick.
And I've moved on to baseball, Holger, so I'm out of that one too.
No playoffs. Wow, no statement. I'm saying Warriors all the way. It's time to win something here again for San Francisco, the Bay Area. Right, thanks everybody for watching. Went a little longer. Hope this was insightful. This is Holger Mueller with Chris Kanaracus, Dion Hinchcliffe, and Henschen. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Holger. Bye.